It was a warm, quiet morning in Tampa, Florida. Nothing seemed unusual at the courthouse, until Pam Bondi walked through the doors, wearing a navy blue suit and a small gold cross around her neck. To most people, it was just a piece of jewelry. But to Judge Prescott, it was a reason to start something that would soon spiral into a nationwide debate. Pam, a seasoned attorney known for her composure and sharp legal mind, was there for a routine hearing. At least, that's what it was supposed to be. As she approached the defense table, she noticed the subtle shift in the courtroom. Eyes turned. Whispers exchanged. But nothing prepared her for what the judge said next. "Ms. Bondi," Judge Prescott called out, his voice steady but cold, "religious symbols are not permitted in my courtroom. Remove the cross or face a fine." A brief silence fell over the room. Pam blinked. Slowly. "Excuse me, Your Honor?" The judge didn't flinch. "You heard me. Your necklace violates courtroom neutrality. Remove it." The bailiff shifted awkwardly. Even the court clerk hesitated. The moment felt surreal. No shouting. No gavel banging. Just an absurd demand hanging in the air. Pam didn't move. Her fingers lightly touched the cross. "This necklace is not a disruption. It is an expression of personal belief, protected under the First Amendment." Judge Prescott leaned forward. "I'm not here to argue constitutional law. Remove it or pay the fine." Pam didn't blink. "Then fine me." A few people in the audience gasped. No one expected that. Not from a woman who had once served as Florida's Attorney General. Not from someone known for her discipline and diplomacy. But something had changed. This wasn't about decorum anymore. It was about principle. Pam stood firm. What was supposed to be a minor hearing about a contractual dispute had just turned into a constitutional standoff. And Judge Prescott didn't realize it yet, but he was about to lose much more than the argument. Because when you try to silence someone for what they believe, you don't just start a legal conflict. You ignite a movement. Judge Prescott didn't back down. With a slight shift in his posture, he signaled that he was about to reassert control over his courtroom. But what he didn't realize was that this was no longer his courtroom. Not in spirit. The attention had already turned to Pam to Ms. Bondi, he began, fingers interlaced, voice calm but pointed. "I've already stated the rule. Are you refusing to comply?" Pam met his gaze squarely. "I am standing by my constitutional right to express my faith, Your Honor. This courtroom doesn't exist outside of the First Amendment." A hushed murmur rippled through the room. Judge Prescott exhaled slowly, trying to maintain composure. "Let me be clear. My concern is not with your faith, but with the symbolism. Symbols can be provocative." Pam didn't flinch. "Then I trust you'll be asking the defense counsel to remove his American flag lapel pin, and the court clerk to take off her Star of David necklace. Or is it only the cross that violates neutrality today?" For a brief second the courtroom froze. Prescott's jaw tightened. "I'm warning you, Ms. Bondi." "No need to," she replied coolly. "I'm simply holding the court to its own standard." She reached into her briefcase and retrieved a folder. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit a formal objection to this fine and enter a motion to clarify courtroom policy on religious expression." "This is irrelevant to the case at hand," Prescott snapped. "It's absolutely relevant," Pam shot back. "When a sitting judge issues a fine based on personal bias, it sets a dangerous precedent." The judge's face darkened, but Pam wasn't done. "I'm also submitting supporting documents. Case law that affirms religious freedom within government institutions." She held up a sheet. "Tinker v. Des Moines. West Virginia State Board of Education v. Barnett. Shall I continue?" Prescott's eyes narrowed. "This is not a classroom." Pam stood taller. "No, Your Honor, it's a courtroom. And that means it's governed by law, not opinion." The room tensed as she laid out her arguments point by point. The media in the gallery scribbled faster. Observers leaned forward. What had started as a fine over a necklace was now a full-blown constitutional debate. Prescott tried to cut her off again, but each time Pam countered him with legal precedent, precision, and poise. Finally, after what felt like hours compressed into minutes, he said, "Mark the fine as under review." Pam gave a faint smile. "Much appreciated, Your Honor." But she knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As the courtroom emptied, The silence remained louder than any closing statement. Judge Prescott had rescinded the fine, but no one walked away thinking he had won. Pam Bondi stood at the center of a storm that had just begun to rage beyond the walls of the Tampa courthouse. Her cross remained exactly where it had been the whole time, untouched, unbent, and now, undeniably symbolic. The cameras outside were waiting. Flashbulbs popped as reporters shouted questions. Pam stopped just briefly on the steps and addressed them with the same composure she had inside. "What happened today wasn't about me," she said, voice clear and steady. "It was about every American's right to express their faith without fear of punishment or censorship." That clip aired across every major network within hours. Social media erupted. Hashtags like #StandWithPam, #FaithOnTrial, and #judicial overreach dominated trending topics. Commentators debated her actions. Some accused her of making a spectacle. Others hailed her as a constitutional hero. But regardless of opinion, the country was watching. Pam knew the real battle wouldn't be on camera. It would unfold in legal briefs, in administrative hearings, and in quiet corridors of power. She returned to her office, where her assistant Lauren had already printed out a press release from the Florida Bar Association. The language was veiled, but the message was clear. This case had stirred uncomfortable waters, and the institution was watching closely. Then came the formal complaint from Judge Prescott's office. The accusation? Disruptive courtroom behavior and inappropriate challenge to judicial authority. Pam read the document twice, then laughed softly. When you challenge power, this is how it hits back. But she wasn't backing down. She reached out to a trusted journalist, Lisa Reynolds, and ensured the public had access to the full story, not just the spin. By morning, legal analysts across networks were dissecting her case. Constitutional scholars weighed in, many agreeing that the judge's actions had crossed ethical and legal boundaries. And the moment Pam had anticipated finally came. The Florida Judicial Review Board announced a formal investigation into Judge Prescott's conduct. Suddenly, the man who had tried to silence her was being scrutinized under the very legal system he once controlled. News anchors replayed the clip of him issuing and then retracting the fine. The visual contrast between Pam's composed resistance and Prescott's flustered reaction painted a picture that resonated beyond politics. It touched a nerve about fairness, identity, and the abuse of authority. Pam wasn't interested in revenge. Her goal had always been about principle. As days passed, she received messages from lawyers, law students, pastors, and everyday citizens. Many thanked her. Others shared their own stories of being silenced or intimidated for living their beliefs. A letter from a high school student stood out. "I never knew people could stand up to judges like that. I thought they were untouchable. But now I think maybe I want to be a lawyer too." That letter reminded Pam what this fight meant. Weeks later, she stood at a podium in front of a packed auditorium of future legal professionals. Her speech wasn't about courtroom tactics or case law. It was about courage. She told them, "The Constitution isn't something that just protects us. It's something we must protect, every day, in every room where power tries to ignore it." As applause filled the hall, she knew this moment wasn't hers alone. It belonged to every person who had ever feared speaking up and chose to anyway. Judge Prescott, meanwhile, faded into the background. Rumors of early retirement surfaced. His rulings were now under review in multiple cases, and his once ironclad grip on his courtroom was now publicly questioned. His silence said more than any rebuttal ever could. Pam's cross still hung around her neck. Not as defiance, but as memory, a reminder of what it took to hold the line. Because in that courtroom, Pam Bondi didn't just win a legal dispute. She proved that sometimes the smallest symbol can challenge the biggest authority, and win. In today's world, where courtroom power dynamics often go unchallenged, Pam Bondi's stance was more than just courageous, it was transformative. She didn't just defend her right to wear a cross. She reminded the nation that no one, not even a judge, stands above the Constitution. Her calm but firm resistance to authority wasn't just a personal act of defiance. It became a symbol of what it means to protect fundamental freedoms in a democratic society. This story shows us that even in spaces meant to uphold justice, injustice can creep in, and it takes a strong voice to call it out. Pam's strength, clarity, and refusal to be silenced is a message we all need right now. If this video resonated with you, moved you, or gave you hope that speaking up still matters, then you're exactly the kind of viewer we make these stories for. Your voice, your thoughts, and your engagement help amplify the values we care about: truth, courage, and integrity. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. And please, drop a comment to let us know how Pam's story impacted you. Let's keep this conversation going and continue to shine a light on the moments that truly define justice.